All right, so today we're going to be talking about something that everyone's been whining about, which is basically everything. We're going to be talking about all 2XKO's biggest issues. Does the game suck? What are the biggest problems? Now we're like 2 months in, with closed beta into early access. We still don't have console, but 1.0 is probably coming up since season 1 is starting next year at some point. So we're basically going to be talking about what everyone's biggest issues are. Do we still like the game? What are my thoughts? What are my first impressions? But today we're going to be talking a lot about the negatives specifically. In general, I've been very positive about this game. I really like 2XKO. And, I've also been paid by Riot for different things. Like, not paid to say anything, but they have invited me to TFT events. I tested this game earlier on. They asked me for feedback sometimes, like when I was testing it. So like, I am being accused by some people that I'm a right shill for this, which, you can make your own judgment about it. I just like the game personally. Like, obviously I'm incentivized to say nice things about them too. But today we're going to be talking about all the things I hate and what everyone else hates. But honestly, some people know that I hate some games, like whether it's Ultimates Online or if it's Guilty Gear Strive's meta, whatever. But I do genuinely want to like try to be positive whenever possible. You might only have known me from these games, but I was not nearly as negative when it came to Dragon Ball or Melee or some other games that I actually liked a lot more, whether it's Marvel 3, KOF 13. And luckily for me, 2SKO is a game I like, so I will still be trying to keep things relatively positively, but it's completely fair to have issues with the game, as long as you don't go into, oh my god, the game is the worst game ever, blah blah blah. Because if you're feeling like the opinion is turning on a game, just know, for someone who's been in fighting games for a long time now, this just happens with every game. Before the game is out, it is the best game ever. It is the game that's going to change everything. They're going to go pro in this game. This is the game that everyone is going to go top 1 in, and it's going to change their lives, and it's going to be perfect. It's going to cure cancer, and they're going to start working hard. They're not going to queue league all day. Like, this is the game that's just going to fix all the problems, right? And then the game comes out, and it's awesome, or it turbo sucks, right? So they instantly quit it, and then they trash talk it on other games' Twitch chat, or they stick with it for a while, and then, because most people don't like playing games for a very long time, most people like trying a bunch of games and then moving on to the next game, or maybe going back to one staple. A lot of people have honeymoon phases in games, and this is completely natural. Most people just like doing things for a while, and then they get bored, right? Because naturally, there's a lot of diminishing returns once you've gotten good but not amazing at a game, right? And I'm not going to judge you if you're this type of person. If you want to move on from 2XKO and you want to play a different game, that is completely fine. It's just a fucking game, But I do personally like, playing games for a long time. I like mastering games. I like getting really good at them and competing at the highest level. So obviously I just can't jump from game to game whenever. But yeah, all that said, let's get into it. We'll answer some of these Twitter comments, and then we will be talking about what I hate, and then we'll ask some Twitch chat some questions as well. Let's break this one down to start with. Real says, body blocking screen being stuck because of this is extremely annoying. I think this one's very fair. Screen locking is a bit too bad, or sorry, like it's too good. It happens too often. So what this is referring to is normally when you call an assist, and then you tag to another character, or if you go, you can still backdash away. But in this game, if your assist is in one corner and your opponent's another corner, and they backdash, they go nowhere, right? It creates an artificial corner. And I agree that this is a big issue. You can't just remove it like that, because it does make runaway even better. And another thing that a lot of people are whining a lot about, right, is that backdashing is too good, and that keep away and out back and projectile zoning is too good, right? And I absolutely I agree that you can't just remove screen lock like that, but it is something that's gonna have to go at some point. So how do you fix this? Well, you fix screen locking by, instead of this character standing over here and creating a corner here so that this character can't move back, what you do in other games is that the other person who backdashes drags the assist. So like this person still goes back, and then the screen keeps staying because the assist back here gets dragged along, instead of this one creating a wall and then this one can't move at all. And this basically makes it so that like slingshot tag, echo my time, stuff like this gets a lot easier to deal with because you're not forced to take it. Like you can actually move out of the way. But again, this heavily buffs like runaway tactics. Okay, next up is Teemo is legit a horribly designed character. Echo. Okay, this is 2. So other people were saying this. Sonic Fox was saying that Teemo doesn't make sense. Let's see. A lot of people have been raging about Teemo. Teemo needs a complete rework. I personally think, as a Teemo main, obviously very biased, I think Teemo definitely needs a lot of changes. I think the biggest changes, personally, to Teemo is he does a bit too much damage for the archetype, and that comes in different forms. Like he gets full combo from throw, which is unintended. It's a bug, and he also gets like a really high damage with Mushroom Super, which I think the Mushroom Super just does way too much damage. Supering in the middle of combos in general do way too much damage. Needs to go, or needs to nerf rather, because it also removes the point of playing double down almost completely. Next up, I think like his zoning is a bit too strong. I personally don't think the instant overhead needs to go from Teemo, but like I could see making it like more risky on block or making it lower damage on hit. But part of the reward right now is actually abusing the bug with spin dash, not having landing lag. I actually don't think Teemo's a horribly designed character. I think he is a toxic character to fight, but honestly, I think that is kind of the personality of the character. Just like how some people, like myself, will always hate fighting grapplers, I think some people will always hate fighting Teemo. And him being this annoying troll character really like enhances like his personality in a way. That's not to say that we need to keep every toxic element to him, but like even if Teemo was perfectly made, in my opinion, a lot of people would still find him very annoying. But I don't think he's horribly designed. I think he is a very toxic character that could definitely needs more changes, but he's already kind of a classic design in my opinion. Like he plays very uniquely from any other character I've ever played, and I think he fits exactly what he's supposed to be. He just does that maybe a little bit too well. Like he's maybe too much of a power fantasy, right? Echo My Time and Throw Rewind. Yeah, I think Echo My Time is fine as an assist for freestyle. And Double Down, I think Echo My Time is completely broken when it comes to 2x assist. But that said, I don't think the forward assist is actually the problem. I think both assists are broken, and if I had to pick one, I would only use back assist with Echo. Throw with Rewind. I think this one probably could use some nerf, but I don't think Burrito OS and Kebab OS and stuff like that is like that big of a problem, honestly, because it costs a meter. I just think Echo gets too much meter in general, and he doesn't need meter for some of his damage. Like he's too efficient with meter in general, spends it too well, has too much utility from it. So I think it's fair to nerf it a little bit. Like maybe you can't rewind as many times. So if you decide to use rewinds on throw whiff, like the Burrito is, then your pressure afterwards is much worse. I think that could be a good solution. But right now, I think the problem with Echo's rewind super is that it's like almost exclusively used on offense, which I think is kind of lame. It would be cool if it was more useful in neutral, but take away a lot of the oppressive like Oki. Fury damage. I think Fury needs to be strong so that you can make 2v1 comebacks, but I agree. Fury is definitely like very annoying. I think comeback mechanics have a place in fighting games when it comes to team games. I don't think they need to exist in 1v1 games for the most part because you just go next round. But in 2v2 games, yeah, you get to the scenario where you're solo, Braum, and it's versus two people, and it just without Fury, it could just feel hopeless. And without Fury being strong, it also means that you would just have to burst on your point character in every interaction, which would make burst baiting super easy because you could never save your burst for your second character, right? But I do think the Fury damage is still too high. What Fury does is that it basically removes the minimum damage scaling, so it doesn't make your hits do like a gazillion damage, but it makes them not scale. That's the biggest difference. Burst wall bounce is also ugly. Yeah, comboing from a burst bait is really, really weird. One thing Dragon Ball did to make wall bounces more consistent, which I think they should do here, is that right now, the way a wall bounce works is that, like, this character gets wall bounced, they fly to the wall, and they bounce, and then they always go like a trajectory, right? And then if they're slightly lower, then they still bounce. Oh, sorry, I'm doing this on camera. And then they go a little bit lower. And then if they're a bit higher, they wall bounce here, and then they fly even higher. And then, like, all this stuff is, like, fine in theory, but when you in a match, it just creates too many variables. So instead of it being truly like physics based, I wish they would cheat a little bit so that basically you could wall bounce them at the top of the screen and it would be like this height. And then if it's mid of screen, it's this height. And then if it's low height, then it's just this height. And like you basically just lock it, you cheat so that instead of it being truly like this height on the wall bounce, it's like this. That would create it a lot easier to punish a burst bait. And I think burst baits, like the hard thing about a burst bait should be baiting the burst, not comboing after you've already baited it. In general, burst still needs more work. Like right now, there's a glitch you can't block after furying. Yeah, this person is touching on what I said earlier, that Echo RA Teemo, they get double down damage without actually having to use double down. I agree with this. I think this is the problem basically with the double down fuse, is that right now you get a lot of meter, but it's very easy to spend it with the best characters. I don't think people realize just how much of these characters' strength is actually in the fact that they can use meter better than anyone else. Like, with the exception of maybe Yasuo, but Yasuo can only use meter well because he has a glitch. You're not supposed to be able to do his double super from the combos he's doing it right now. And all these characters, if they remove the double super, or like the mid combo super into more combos, they would all do way less damage. So like, just by that, you're fixing, you're actually giving them a weakness. You're giving them the weakness that they're lower damage characters, which I think needs to happen if you want them to, because Ari, Echo, and Teemo, they're all just characters that like they do a lot of things, and their character archetype kind of depends on not having like slow movement, bad offense, bad short moves. Like if you nerf these things too much, they would just feel awful. So I think the only way to balance Echo Ari Teemo is by giving them actually lower damage to justify the fact that they have, loopable Oki and all this mobility. They are not, though, the only characters that can do this. That's wrong, but yeah. This is a larger point. Have the characters being extremely sauces and boring to play or fight. Against Darius, Ilaoi, Blitz, Braum, my head starts drooping in the struggle to stay awake. They're truly unexciting to play as well. I think in general, this is just like one of the game's biggest problems. This game just has too many big bodies, too many basic, relatively slow punch characters, right? Like, yes, Blitzcrank grabs you, and yes, Braum has a shield, and yes, Darius technically uses an axe, and Lau uses tentacles a little bit, and Vi uses sway, but like they're all too similar. And yeah, obviously Warwick can like blood rage, but like they're all very similar in terms of what they want to do and how they play neutral, compared to Jinx, Teemo, Ari, Echo, and Yasuo, right? Like, all those characters are a lot more flexible and a lot more interesting to fight. Which is why I personally think that the biggest issue with the game right now, balance-wise, is actually that a lot of the bad characters don't have enough things to do, rather than the best characters being too good. I do, for the record, I still want the best characters to be nerfed. They have a lot of stupid things. But I think the best characters like Yasuo, Echo, Teemo, and Ari are a lot closer to the level and how a character should feel than Braum currently is. I think Braum and Blitz and stuff like that, like those characters are like strong in very simple ways, and they have weaknesses that like are not very fun to play around. Like, they're just slow. That's like their main weakness, which is like, I wish it was a bit more interesting. Like, I think this game could play around a lot more with like, oh, this character can't combo from this type of thing. This character has like very low damage. This character is like really bad anti-airs, but like I think they want to create a pretty solid base to start off with. And they wanted these characters, like these big bodies, to not have any like major strength or major weakness that like truly cripples a new player. So I think what they did is that they just made all the big bodies like convert fine from everything and do high damage even with very simple combos. But they like limited like the big bodies double supers. They limited their like movement instead. And I think I'm not sure how I would change it, but I agree that like they need to carve out more identity for some of these characters that like closer to the bottom, because they're just not diverse enough. And a character roster with this small, a character roster this small already struggles to have diversity. So having characters that all feel similar near the bottom, or just, it doesn't even matter if they're strong or not. Like just the fact that a lot of characters are too similar, I think it's a big problem. And I don't. This 2XKO is unlike other team games. They want to do something that not a lot of team games do, which is that they want to have the basis for movement be very low, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, in Dragon Ball, every character can basically air dash, right? And like every character can super dash. In Marvel, like the base speed is so much higher in other team games, and they have almost all have a double jump, an air dash, or like good movement. There are slow characters. There are characters without like good movement in other team games, but very rarely are those characters good, because it's really hard to make a team game where you have assists, you have tagging, you have crazy projectiles. It's really hard to make big bodies feel good in that type of environment. And I think they basically just 2XKO basically shows, in my opinion, that when you make low movement characters, they're really hard to make well. And I'm pretty sure that at some point we're gonna get a broken big body in this game, right? Like just by chance, much of the cast is a big body, or a character without an air dash, without a like really good movement. So at some point, there's just gonna be the best, and I think at that point we will realize just how awful that meta can be. Because when those characters are good, they're generally good for very bad reasons. Projectile staying out after the point character gets hit. Teemo, slingshot, echo timer. Yeah, I think this needs to go too. So I don't necessarily think they need to go all at once. I think that could be argued. I think maybe some projectiles should be able to stay. Like maybe like Jinx traps, or maybe Jinx rocket should stay, but not slingshot, for example. Like I think you could play around a little bit with that. I don't necessarily think we need to go like full on. This should never ever be a thing right now, but I think the moves would still be amazing without staying out on hit, because you can still block behind them, and dash blocking is good in this game. So basically what I'm saying is I think this should definitely be a thing that more projectiles have, that they disappear after hit. So another one, I have to feel like one of the 4 characters. It's so funny, man. I really like. We're gonna be looking at that later today, but like, I really don't think it's true. You have to play one of the top fours, especially like. The thing is that most people they're like legit not most people what making these wine points are like diamond or lower, right? And at those levels, you absolutely do not have to play Teemo or Echo or Ari or Yasuo to do well. Like they're not even the best characters to play. It was only a month ago, by the way, where people argued that the Juggernaut was too good, right? Because that was just the in thing to whine about. Like that was the problem at that point. And then they nerfed Juggernaut, and now suddenly, you have to play Echo. In 1 month, suddenly everyone got so good that the worst fuse by far, Juggernaut, that was always horrible, is like completely gone from the discussion, right? And now it's, whining about that you need one of these other characters. Don't get me wrong though, I think there's balance issues, but this is kind of like one of these things where people just they are the villains of the week. Whining about the top four is the current villains. There's gonna be a patch soon, right? In a week and a half or so. And after that patch, there's gonna be a new villain, right? And then everyone's gonna be whining about the Sinister Six, the Magnificent Seven, or like, oh, I can't do anything with the Bot 2 if there's still a Bot 2. People just have to have excuses, and this is the current one. Okay, so this I trust the devs when it comes to balance, so I think they found long-term solutions to that Teemo regardless. Yeah, I think it's very important to remind everyone too that like this is still very early on. We got a patch a month ago, and we're getting another patch, in a week and a half. It's like the game is changing very quickly for a fighting game, and I think some people forget that games actually do take a very long time to get good. It's very easy to be like, well, look at Street Fighter 6 or look at Tekken. Okay, maybe not Tekken. Everyone hates Tekken right now, but like, let's look at Strive. Most people hate Strive too, but like, if you look at these other games that like they might have issues, but like people like the fact that this game is more balanced than the other games. You compare this game to Dragon Ball. You compare this game to Marvel 3. No one compares current 2XKO to Marvel 3 Vanilla, right? Everyone compares it to the later version, like released a year later, Ultimate Marvel 3, right? With a couple bug fix patches. Everyone compares it to Street Fighter 5 or 6, 3 years in, right? Not on launch. Fighting games are always bad on launch, and the developers have been very open about the fact that this is the worst the game will ever be, right? Like they're working very hard to improve the game, and they're very confident they can fix it. And I think even if you hate the game, it is actually pretty unlikely that a game is worse than its 1.0 version down the road, because there's just a lot of easy fixes they could do to make the game feel better. And one of those things is like point number 3, that there's like a lot of bugs in this game. I think the game is very playable in terms of like, you can get matches super quick. It's fun. You can build teams. You can play duos. Matchmaking is great. Ranked works well. All this stuff. The netcode is unbelievable. Best in class by far. But there is absolutely the truth in that, yeah, the game when you're actually playing it has more bugs than average. It's also a more complicated game than a game like Street Fighter 6. So bugs are obviously more likely, but it's true. There's a lot of bugs. Double Down. What should they do to Super Tech? Yeah, I think Double Down is just a really, really, really hard thing to balance. Double Down is only really viable with a broken Super Tag. So I think the best way they fix it is by basically nerfing using supers without Double Down. And then nerfing Super Tags a little bit. So you can still use it, but not as much and not as well. And then because you nerf how everyone else uses supers, then Double Down now has a purpose of having really good supers. And you can maybe buff supers and how they work in combos and on offense while keeping them worse in neutral. This was interesting because I think it's just wrong, personally. The mix-ups that I do and are done to me do not feel earned. I genuinely feel there's not much they can do to mitigate this with how the engine works. I am 3 weeks sober. Okay. If you're 3 weeks sober, that means you played the game for like half of the time it's been out. Which means you probably did not get good at defense to begin with. There's characters with too good offense. And there's characters that are too strong in that. But I think, genuinely, that this game has some of the best balance between offense being strong and satisfying and defense being very strong and skillful while still being clearly worse than offense, right? In game, there's some games where defense is stronger than offense and they all feel terrible to play, and especially for a team game that does not work. That is a game you could see, you could see in Alpha Lab 2 that was kind of getting closer to that, and that felt fucking awful to play, right? I honestly think that a lot of people, when it comes to like the mix-up stuff like that, are just not good enough at using defensive mechanics, which always happens, by the way. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not amazing in defense compared to what I could be, because defense just takes longer. It always does. It always does. I personally think defense is very, very strong in this game. Parry is broken. Retreating guard is amazing. You get full combos if you jump a throw, like if you fuzzy jump, all that stuff. But right now, yes, offense feels very, very strong. But I think if you look at any fighting game, especially anime fighters and team games, like high-powered games, but even like Tekken or whatever, if you look at these games and you look at version 1.0 or even before 1.0 like this game is, offense is always fucking broken on launch, bro. It's always broken. There's only two states that can really exist in high-powered games on launch. It's either the defense is completely broken and the game is unplayable, or it's that offense is broken, right? And you take turn fucking each other up. And I actually think that in this game, the defense is a lot better than many games like DNF Duel, current Tekken 8 that has like insane like aggression incentives, right? Strive, especially Strive 1.0. Strive 1.0, bro, most characters could not match like versus Soul Farceless at all, right? And you got TOD'd if you mashed on it. You could throw OS so that whiff throws got RC'd, and you could like, oh my god, dude, it was so stupid. Like most characters did not have a functioning 6P anti-air. Like way worse than the anti-airs are in this game, and it's way more important to have anti-airs. Most people didn't have any conversion from fast buttons like 5Ps, 2Ps, and they were all like too slow to be a throw, which is a completely different scenario, by the way, than in this game, because you don't have things like retreating guard push block. Yeah, I genuinely think that as people get better at the game and as they nerf the biggest outliers and like this offense is too strong, and people get better, I think offense and defense will be in a very like good place. You can see that a lot of people have just like made sure that it's a top 4 now, which is very interesting because like Ari was like slightly buffed. She was really not as buffed as you guys think, by the way. She was just very annoying to play. We have people like SKD, who's one of the best Ari labbers, who says Ari was actually nerfed because of nerfs to her 5H block stun and stuff like that. I don't think the meta is as set as people want it to be. Sorry. We thought Jinx was the best character. Everyone thought Jinx was the best character, bro. And she's very clearly... She was never among the best. She was never among the best characters. Right? Yes, Jinx did get some tiny nerfs, but like she also got a big compensation buff, and the game in general benefits her more now with Fury not having Oki and all these things. She's still fine, by the way, but like it's important to remember how new the game is and how bad we are. And yes, it might feel like, oh, the game has been out for 2 weeks and we have had a full month with this game, so we know which the best characters are now. I just hope you guys like remember that like in in early Strive, in early Dragon Ball, and all these games, people are wrong about characters for years, man. Like years. Like, dude, in Melee, people realized recently that Donkey Kong is actually really good, and that game has been out and super competitive for 20 plus years. Like, complicated games just are a lot harder than people think. And no, it's not like, oh, because of social media, now we figure out everything instantly. No, like, yes, that helps, of course, but there is a cap to it. And even games with social media and streaming and all this stuff, they still take a long time to actually figure out who the best character is. Okay, I think we're done with this segment. Let me order some food, and then I'm gonna... I'm gonna start playing some. Today we're gonna be playing Warwick Blitz, among other teams. So we're gonna try to learn someone not part of the top 4. Crazy.